He doesn't want me to go inside because he says I'm too large. Rather, I should take the vines upward to meet with the people who live near the top of the tree. So I'm climbing the vine, pretty easy. I'm very strong. And I get to the top, and it's bigger than it appeared when I was at the bottom. If you've ever seen the Star Wars movie with all of the Wookiees living near the top, this is similar to what it looks like.
Okay.
However, there are a lot more crystals. It's more of a crystalline sort of structure rather than wood. And this is a community. This community is responsible for overseeing the ecology of their small district that they live in. Again, very easy to breathe here. There appears to be some sort of problem with whoever is ruling right now. It is some sort of animal being, like a slug. And while very patient and virtuous, the nature of his group has grown too fast for him to govern. So they need someone else to be recruited. And it's definitely not me, thankfully. But apparently I come visit here all the time. It's where I go to recharge.
When you say I, what do you mean by I? I as Brendon or I as another being?
I get the word nocturnus.
And if you look down at your body, what do you see?
My body is glowing. It is still a bipedal, but I can see right through it. It changes color based on my various perceptions and how I kind of choose to make it look. I'm wearing it's like a blue uniform almost that fits skin tight on my body. And I still have long hair. And I'm tall. With a very strong brow. I have very pronounced facial features that allows me to express my mood in a very easy to understand way.
Okay.
It is not a gendered body, though. It is not male or female.
So, whereabouts is this place then, do you think?
What's that?
Whereabouts is this place then, do you think? Don't worry if you don't know.
This is underground. This is underneath the earth.
Okay.
This tree, in metaphysical terms, is a vein in the earth.
Okay.
And there's a lot more energy moving through it than in past times, which is why a change of rule is in order.
Okay.
It looks like that they're nominating some sort of monkey being. He looks just like Hanuman. Oh, it is Hanuman.
Who's
Hanuman is the Vedic god who serves Rama. But in this context, this being is part of the oversoul of Hanuman. He has a really sharp mind and a lot of compassion, so he has the perfect characteristics for the job.
So, can you see this person there or not?
Yes. If you have seen a picture of Hanuman in any Vedic text, he looks very much like him, except larger and hairier.
So, what's he doing there? He's there in order to take charge?
Yes, he is basically telling the slug-like being, that he no longer needs to be the master drive, as we have discussed it before, of this vein of the earth. He will take over, and he will be able to manage the energies moving through at this time.
Okay. Is this something in the past, or is it something in the present that this is happening?
This is happening right now.
Okay. Is there any questions you want to ask Hanuman?
Yes. Hanuman. Is this part of the whole grid keeper dynamic? Okay, it absolutely is, yes. This tree is symbolic of a ley line in the grid of the earth.
Is that why
And
sorry.
he is telling me that just as he is a grid keeper for the energies under the earth, I am the same for the energies on the surface of the earth. And that a change of guard is happening on the surface of the earth, just as it is happening underground.
What do you mean change of guard?
Just as the slug was responsible for the mediation of the energies within this tree, there are entities on the planet who are responsible for mediating who enters and exits the planet on the surface. And that those that have been delegated this responsibility are no longer in charge, and a new group is being put into place. This is why the Earth has been in such chaos, as this change of guard is not always done smoothly.
Okay. So how does he know that? How does he know about the change of guard and stuff?
He tells me this is divine decree. I cannot define that term any farther. This is... okay, never mind. I can define it a little bit more. Basically, because the Earth has moved through this photon belt in a certain part of the galaxy, the energies that are coming through require that there be a... just as if you were to play a more advanced video game on a computer, you would need a faster processor. This is required for the amount of change that needs to happen upon the surface of the planet. So this is why the guard is being changed.
So the guard is being changed so that changes can happen faster.
Yes.
And when you say the guard, who's the guard that is going away then, going out?
The FBI and the CIA are being dissolved from the inside. The CIA is CAI, or Chi, which is the same as the word Cain, which is the same as the word king. This patriarchal way of rule is being dissolved.
Okay. And so who's taking the position then?
The energies of Kali Ma. So, essentially, instead of a set group of oligarchs ruling the planet, there is simply going to be a delegation of power by the mass consciousness. So, instead of having somebody turn all the faucets in a large bell, we have a group that has been delegated the ability to change the flux of energy based on the current needs of the collective. So this can be described as sort of a matriarch, because it is of a caring and nurturing nature, rather than this current nature that is more domineering.
Okay. So how come the inner guard then under the earth is changing too?
As within, so without. The archons are being delegated into a different role. Not different, but energetically they have a different threshold. So in order to maintain that, there must be somebody else that can delegate the archons, because the archons, while they are primordial energies, do have self-awareness. So therefore, they must be dealt with similar to how a human being would be dealt with who lived within his own home. And Hanuman is the perfect being for this, as he is the servant to Rama, or the one creation, and very compassionate.
So what happens if you don't deal with the archons in the proper way? And when you say archons, you're meaning like elements, right?
Yes, the energies that keep the cycle of life continuing on the planet. So for example, the water cycle is an archon.
So how are they being dealt with during this transition?
I'm getting polar shift. So it is a polar shift that is happening. Therefore, the archons must change their orientation to match with the magnetic pole switch.
Is that a sudden thing or a gradual thing?
It is both. It is gradual in a sense that the effects of this transition occur within linear time as humans experience it. But on the dimension that Hanuman is working with, this has already taken place.
And how far are they shifting?
They're shifting in a way that will allow the new mass amounts of souls to come in and rapidly progress the growth of the collective consciousness. So it's as if that the collective consciousness went from being kept in a gallon container into a 2,000 gallon container. So it's like making more room for growth.
So it's a metaphysical shift, not a literal third density shift.
It is metaphysical, but it affects it affects every density on the planet. But what the Earth is doing is it's essentially making room so that beings now will have the choice to live in a higher vibrational version of the planet. While before this ability was cut off from almost all human beings, this is now a freely given opportunity. Every human being now on the planet is living within their own multidimensional universe where they may decide what vibration they choose to live in at any given moment.
Yeah. That's very synchronous. I've just recorded a video on how to create your own reality. So,
And Hanuman brought me here in this specific instance because I am a very adept with nature. So he knew that this tree, I would be able to make the connection with what the tree symbolizes for the planet.
Okay. So you say it's not made of wood, it's made of like a crystalline structure.
Yes, this is like a large vein within the planet.
So it's not rock then, or it is rock?
You could call it ether.
Alright, so it's not third density substance, is it?
No, it is not. It is of the fourth.
Oh. And are there other veins that individuals have been tasked with overseeing and protecting?
Yes, the large influx of souls are the grid keepers on the planet. Many of them. And they come from various systems. Some of them have been incarnating on this planet for many, many lifetimes and have gained the aptitude to also be a grid keeper.
Okay. So when you say grid, could you explain that a bit more?
Yes. So as the energetic template is being changed, there must be a large group of individuals that can hold this template as the energies align to crystallize it. So it is akin to putting clay within a mold. The individuals known as grid keepers are responsible for holding the mold so that the rest of the collective consciousness may fill the mold.
Okay. And where does this originate from? How the grid? What is it?
This was designed by the masters of Saturn. Saturn is the meeting place within this solar system of the beings who are in charge of the delegation of energies that move within the system.
But in occult practices, Saturn is satanic and has connotations of control in a negative way.
Yes, because Saturn, in alchemical terms, is lead. Saturn is also synonymous with the god Kronos, which is time, and so it involves death. The masters of Saturn are responsible for the delegation of karmic lessons on the planet Earth. So many people translate that as satanic, because Satan represents the serpent, which is earthly knowledge, which involves death and shedding of the serpent's skin.
So why do our current controllers, why do they worship that then?
Because just as there are masters on the planet Saturn, there are also beings of a malevolent nature from Saturn. And many of these beings that they worship actually claim to be from Saturn simply because there is a cultural representation of that sort of energy. But they are lying. Many of them are not even from this system.
David Icke claims that there's a broadcast coming from Saturn that is mind controlling us.
David Icke is being mind controlled himself.
By who?
He is in a program of fear. Therefore, he attracts these energies to him in various degrees, and it imprints upon him a psychic connection with the planet Saturn, which he has demonized. Planets are not bad. They are simply units of collective consciousness. It is the intention of the individual beings within those consciousness that dictates their nature, whether malevolent, benevolent, or neither. And he has simply encountered the malevolent forces, which are being amplified because these beings have knowledge of the archons and how to actually use them for their influence. Again, these archons are primordial energies. They are not good or bad, but with whatever the intention of the wielder dictates the nature of the energy.
Okay. So is there anything being broadcast from Saturn?
Yes. Various degrees of lessons and complexity are being broadcast from various planets, including Saturn. Saturn, you could say, is the customs of the solar system, meaning they give permission to various entities and energies what they may do within the system and to what degree they may become a part of the system.
Okay, so
Anima says yes, that's exactly correct.
So who is the group at Saturn then? Could you identify them at all?
This group in particular, they're referred to as the Masters of Saturn. So they are multidimensional beings who have been tasked with the responsibility of delegating the various karmic forces in our solar system.
So that includes reincarnational cycles?
Yes.
And how does that relate to any beings that have come here from elsewhere, if they do exist?
Could you please repeat the question?
Okay. How does that relate to any beings that have come here from elsewhere, if they do indeed exist?
So, in order to enter this system, There must be an agreement must be made with the Council of Saturn. The nature that these entities may come here. So, for example, many souls have come here to incarnate simply to learn lessons on various planes, the Earth being very popular at this moment in time. And so the group on Saturn is responsible for delegating the nature of the being that may incarnate on this planet. Just as Marduk was destroyed and Mars was desolated, the Earth will not go through the same process. Every human being will be destroyed before the Earth is destroyed. So therefore, the energetic frequencies are allowing for those that are prepared to embody their multidimensional faculties on the planet. And so only those that are looking to form that relationship with their inner knowledge may incarnate on the planet at this time. Hanuman says, yes, you are exactly correct.
Okay. And the being that you're talking to, Hanuman, so are we able to trust this source of information? Are you able to verify or challenge that in any way?
Hanuman says it was not him who was telling you this information. This came from Nocturnus, or the being that I am witnessing now as this energetic body that I described to you earlier.
Okay.
Hanuman has simply been here to brief me on the energetic updates of the planet, and that there has been a major shift in these past few days.
Okay, so shortly we'll go back to that then and just check who Nocturnus is then. Okay, so you mentioned other planets. What about them? What kind of presence is on them? Which planets are we talking about?
Well, since we live in a multidimensional universe, each planet contains within them different densities and existences. So, for example, Venus has a civilization that would be on the 5th density. Mars of the 4th. Earth of the 4th and the 3rd. The 4th being underground. Saturn being of the 5th and 6th. The Nibiru being 3rd all the way up to 6th. Mercury 4th. Neptune 5th. Pluto 6th. Uranus 6th and 5th.
So those are the bodies activated.
Jupiter 4th.
Okay. So those are the bodies activated on those planets, and are they all inhabited?
Yes, but not all are in physical bodies. In fact, all of them are in energetic bodies.
So they don't perceive their bodies as we do, as being meat. They perceive their own bodies as being some kind of energetic body.
Yes. This is why it is known by scientists that there are no inhabitants on any planets in our solar system, because they do not reside within the 3rd density.
Yep. Understood. Okay. So it's
The Council of Saturn is specifically within the rings of the planet.
Yep. So does it oversee the whole solar system then?
Yes. In fact, Saturn used to be our original sun. Although it was not bright like our sun is, it gave off large amounts of heat.
Okay. And what are the rings made of? Why does it have rings?
Well, the rings in third density are made of mostly ice crystals. But on the metaphysical level, water contains with it a very uniform structure, akin to the trinity of creation, with 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen. So, on a higher density level, this is very, very high and malleable vibrations that allow these higher density level beings to communicate with each other.
Okay. Okay, so you mentioned that underground on Earth is 4th density. What do you mean by that?
There are cities underground, and these cities are energetically inhabited. They are inhabited within the crystalline grid of the planet. And there are grid keepers down there, such as Hanuman. And the job of the grid keepers on the planet, on the surface, is to communicate with these two, and this is what will be known as full disclosure when time comes. The entities we will communicate will not be from outer space, but will be from underground.
Okay. And the partial disclosure that seems to be going on at the moment, who's behind that?
The CIA and the FBI are controlling the information being given to individuals with the partial disclosure in order to program fear into people for what may come in the future. Because if they make the presupposed claim that there could be life elsewhere, then they can claim that they were the ones who found it in the first place, even though we have had communication with these beings for over 100 years.
Okay, so they would be in control of it then, yeah.
They would try to, but since we have the change of guard happening, they are desperately trying to hold on to anything that they can.
And how are they being removed?
Please repeat the question.
How are in the change of guard, are they being removed forcefully or persuasively?
Some, yes.
Okay.
In fact, this is my role in a very small degree, is to not force the individual out, but rather to bring about an energetic environment so that these vibrations would have no way of dwelling within the environment anyway.
Okay.
So that is the nature of them being forced out.
So they can't dwell within this vibration because they're too negatively polarized. So is that causing them discomfort, or just is it manifesting them leaving, or what's causing?
Yes, it is causing them to blame each other because they have yet to figure out the source of their issues.
Okay, so they're turning in on themselves.
Yes, there are many people who are actually de facto controllers. They simply sat there as grid keepers, just like we were, and were just waiting for the energies to be in a certain position, what is known as divine timing, to be able to hold the grid and drive out those that could no longer hold that vibration.
Okay, so because the energies and vibrations are rising, that's the effect it's having on their self-serving selves, is that they are basically becoming disarranged in their structure and unable to focus?
It is much more simpler than that. Imagine a freshwater pond that suddenly turned to salt water. The conditions still allow for life to live, but many organisms that live within that water can no longer sustain themselves. So they must either find a new place to live or die. That is simply the nature of what is happening on a planet-wide scale.
Okay. Okay then. So what
I am receiving this pain in my chest.
And what's the source of that?
There is a being trying to interfere with this transmission.
Okay then. And how can we fix that?
Never mind. It was my mother. She was worried about what I was doing.
Okay. Do you want to continue?
Yes, she said it's fine.
Does she worry a lot then?
It's because it was hot in here.
Oh, okay. Okay, so, what can we do as general population of people who feel they've come here to aid in some way? What can we do to help the transition?
The best way to help in the transition is to take control of your multidimensional faculties. The easiest way to describe this to the general population is your dream world. Your ability to dream is your ability to manifest your creations within your mind before they have projected into the physical. If you can control the way that you experience your lucid dreams, this will immediately translate into your physical life.
So do you mean dreams when sleeping or like daydreaming?
Both. That dreaming faculty is found within the thymus. The thymus projects its psychic energy onto what is known as the psychic lens of the forehead, and then is projected immediately into your environment that you experience.
So you're saying, sorry.
Having control of this thymus is having control of what is known as the yogic powers.
And what can we do to improve that?
Water. Having a clean source of water is the most important thing to the physical body. Of course, there are many other ways to clean the energetic body because that is where it starts. The general population would be most benefited by simply having a clean water source.
Why does that help so much?
The body is a large water bottle. If it is filled with non-conducting material, it will conduct no energy. If you have clean water, you are able to conduct energy effectively and without blockages.
Okay.
The nature of energy is that it likes to move. Stagnation of energy is the cause of all disease and all misunderstandings.
What effect does chlorinating drinking water, I'm not talking about fluoride, but chlorine, what effect does chlorinating drinking water have, if any?
Chlorine produces an acidic response within the body. When this happens, the body uses various hormones and mechanisms to keep the body within a pH balance. But the after effect is what is known as uric acid buildup. This must be removed by the body, otherwise it hardens and creates muscular tension, acidic gaseous combustion within the gut, and the inability for the midbrain to delegate the electrical current between the two hemispheres of the brain.
And what effect does this have upon the mind?
This causes the mind to be lopsided, per se, which is why many people are known as left-brain people.
And does it have an effect on mood?
Yes. It does not allow your body to regulate the hormones that create the mood within the body.
So what mood might it produce?
It would produce whatever mood would be a necessary response to your environment. However, you would not be able to regulate this mood. So, for example, if you had a thought about something that would be known as sad, instead of being able to regulate your emotions based on the thought will carry itself onward within your consciousness and produce more of the same feeling.
So it can make us feel negative then if we're already in a predisposed negative mood.
Yes.
Okay. And would you be able to comment on the fluoridation of water then?
Yes, fluoride is a heavy metal that is non-conductive.
Oh, right.
Therefore, it causes stagnation in all parts of the energetic field of the body, but primarily within the midbrain, because the midbrain is the central hub for the nutrients that flow within the blood. So if there is fluoride within the blood, the midbrain is the first part of the body to pick up these materials.
Okay, so it's basically, it's all stopping us being a good conductor.
Yes.
And could you clarify conductor for what?
Electricity.
So the effective electromagnetic interactions between all our cells?
Yes.
And what about our electromagnetic field? How does that, what importance does that have?
I will give you a basic lesson in Newtonian magnetics.
Oh.
So whenever current runs through a wire, it creates a magnetic field that is perpendicular to the direction or orthogonal to the direction of the current. So as current flows through the body, this is translated into the auric field. However, this process actually happens in reverse. But for the ideas explained in scientific terms to the human mind, it is much easier to understand it this way. So as current moves through the body, this produces an orthogonal magnetic field, which is why the aura represents the internal mood and internal conditions of the being. So those with colorful auras have energy that is cycled through their body with minimal obstructions, while those who are intoxicated and in the trenches, as they say, of deep illusion, their aura seems distorted and clouded. This happens especially when men are and women are intoxicated with alcohol. Their entire aura becomes clouded because the body is now acidic and unable to conduct electricity effectively.
Okay, so if I make a statement, let me know if I'm right. So we can detect a human's electromagnetic field in the third density, but would you say the aura is the version of it in another density or dimension?
Yes, all dimensions are dovetailed into one another. So the aura would be the energetic mirror of the condition of the physical body.
Okay.
But it is easier to handle it from the spiritual perspective because it happens within the inner planes first. So it happens within your aura before it happens within your body.
Right. So even if you eat or drink poorly, it affects your aura first?
Yes.
Okay.
Eating or drinking poorly is akin to tuning into a vibration that is distorted. You did that first by making the conscious decision to eat it before you put it in your mouth.
Okay. So if we were to think in terms of yourself being a point of consciousness within the unified field, or perhaps a program running in the matrix, and food therefore and drink must therefore be sub-programs running. Does that disrupt or affect your running of you, the program? Does that make sense?
It can, but it can also enhance it.
Okay.
The cool thing about living in a dualistic plane is that every single sub-program, as you call it, has dual purposes. You may build or destroy. You may heat up or cool down. You may speed up or slow down. All is neutral. You give it its purpose.
Okay.
So, if your purpose is to cleanse the body, it is effective to break down the elements of the body before building up new ones.
So break down negative building blocks within the body in order to build new ones.
Yes, this is why clean water source is so essential. Distilled water has absolutely no solids within it. It is only liquid. Therefore, they call it thirsty water. So it sucks up anything it can get its hands on, which is very effective for cleaning out fluoride and chlorine. But the water does not distinguish elements within the body. It can just as easily pull nutrients that are vital, minerals that are vital to the body, which is why it's important to remineralize after having a cleanse.
Yep, electrolytes, they become low.
Yes.
So the program known as water is beneficial to the program known as you. It is programmed to have a beneficial effect, right?
Yes, in fact, the program of water and the program of the human body cannot be separated. The human body is a general term to describe a large amount of archons or agreements to form a bipedal that is sentient.
And is it sentient only because of the presence of... Well, that's the wrong way around. The way I perceive it is that the human body doesn't possess a soul, but the human body is a projection of a consciousness. So the body results from the conscious projection, not the body containing a soul. Could you comment on that?
Yes, the body does contain a soul. However, the body can run on what is called artificial intelligence. Now, let me explain what this means exactly. Artificial intelligence does not mean it is not real. Artificial intelligence simply means it did not come from a womb. It came from a mind. Therefore, a large majority of individuals, their souls are not the primary controller of the body. Their character that they have invented, their ego, their eidolon, their egregor, is the primary controller of their body, which runs on desires or duality.
Okay, and so would you comment on how beneficial it would be for them to attempt to allow their divine or soul self to run their body instead of the egoic construct?
Well, what they're actually doing is the soul is allowing the egoic construct to be the one in control. But the soul is always the one making a choice. So what happens is that the egoic mind presents the soul with two different desires, and the soul chooses between one of them. And on and on and on this goes. This is duality. As soon as the soul realizes that it does not need a middleman to make these decisions, this is when true freedom or moksha occurs.
But doesn't the soul already know that?
Yes. That is why they say it is your choice that you are suffering.
Okay. But what I was getting at is that is the human body being let's say information within the mass mind, within the one infinite being, is the human body not projected here by some higher being? Is the human body not a thought projected here by some higher being, like the higher self?
Right, it is a thought form projection, but it is not a thought form projection of a physical mind. So we make that distinction very clearly. It's the difference between awareness or consciousness and mind, which is what we know as the human mind. The higher self is not the human mind. Creation does not come from a human mind. It comes from a mind that has no limitations. So many people do not use the word mind. They use the word consciousness or awareness because this implies there's no distinction. The mind runs entirely on distinction. So when the mind creates an ego or creates an eidolon, this is what's known as artificial intelligence because it came from a limited mind. Creation, or the human body is a result of the makeup of the planet Earth. And the planet Earth is a result of the thought form projection of the mass consciousness. This is not distorted through the lenses of duality like the human mind is. So this is the distinction. You can say the exact same thing about the soul as well. The soul is the thought form projection of the overmind, which is not really a mind that we know it in human language. I hope that distinction is clear.
Yep. Okay, so are you saying that the ego in this lifetime, the human self, is basically artificial intelligence?
Yes, because it's compartmentalized. It has many different aspects. There's a part of you that's, happy. There's a part of you that is athletic. There's a part of you that's blah, 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 blah. They each have a role. However, they don't run the show. It's when they assume that they run the show that things start to go awry. Because the ego has no idea what it's actually doing. It doesn't know how the functions of creation and the functions of reality actually work. It can only recall from past experiences. So the soul becomes frustrated because the ego continually brings them explanations that aren't in tune with the universal truth. And so once the soul finally gets tired of experiencing this, it will transcend it. But no time before that.
So the soul wants the human egoic self to realize all this stuff?
No, because the egoic mind is incapable of knowing this. That is why there is so much fear in the program of the ego, because the ego knows that it can't die in that regard. However, if the soul can communicate to the ego that they have a mutual relationship for functioning as a human being, the ego will step down as the primary master and allow the soul to be the head honcho. And the ego will simply serve as a servant to the soul for playing roles in everyday life as a human being.
You just verbalized what I've been trying to get at for a long time. That's awesome. So, and how do we get our ego to allow the soul in that way and to take a greater role?
By training the mind to stop judging so much. This is done by not categorizing everything that you experience as good or bad. This is judgment in its simplest form. As soon as you place something in a category, there is no longer any way that it can change its nature. So therefore you have limited it to something of the mind, the human mind.
But are we not then? But then, how would we be able to decide that we are a good person or a bad person if we cannot categorize ourselves as either or?
It's not that we cannot categorize ourselves, but it is the notion that these categories are fixed. These categories are not fixed. They are temporal labels. And it's the confusion with the labels versus the true nature of the reality itself that cause such huge misperceptions.
Okay, so it's kind of like Okay, so that was quite a leap in understanding then. So it's not just the language and the dropping of the labels. It's an entirely different way of thinking that is just not being anything, so not requiring myself to be a good person or a bad person, I just am.
Yes. For example, feeling is a very real experience. Can you feel the word good?
Kind of, yeah.
Does the feeling transcend the short vibration of the word good?
The word good represents a feeling to me, which I can choose to feel that feeling, but the word itself isn't the feeling.
It is this very subtle distinction that allows the soul to not get caught up in the mind's mental games all the time. Because even if it doesn't feel good, if the mind chooses to label something as good, many times the individual will go with that interpretation rather than what it feels like.
Okay. And just a couple more things then before we close is, could you make a distinction between the soul and higher self, those terms, if there is one, a distinction?
Yes, the easiest way to describe it is with the word logos. So the higher self would be the primary locus of consciousness, and each incarnation that he has would be the sub-logos within its specific timeline.
So each incarnation, is that the soul consciousness that goes round and round in these incarnations then?
Yes, it's like if you had a hand with finger puppets on each finger. The higher self would be the entire hand, but it's still comprised of each finger, and each finger has its own puppet with its own role.
And each one would be a soul consciousness?
Yes.
And each of those has different lifetimes?
Yes.
And they're all projections via thought of the higher self?
Yes.
Okay. And each of those...
But again, it is not a thought the way that is described in the human mind. This thought is more of a desire, but a pure desire. Many people say that the first thought form projection of creation was love. And love obviously is not just simply a thought.
Okay, yeah.
I hope that this distinction is made very clear. Because many people get very confused when the word thought is used.
So it's, as well as concepts, it's also including emotions?
Yes, all experiences.
Okay, and each of those souls, that label we just said, each of those has the potential to grow into some kind of higher self type being. Yet another label.
Yes.
Okay.
It would be like the finger puppets being able to realize that they can use finger puppets on their fingers.
Awesome. One little thing is, can we just touch on duality again? Is that something we're supposed to transcend in this density, or is that for the next?
Transcending duality is going to the next density, but it's not so much you going there, it is an embodying that density. Because, like we said before, we are now on a planet where we are multidimensional beings. So every single being has the choice to vibrate at a specific density or frequency at any given moment. And their outside world projection will be a reflection of that. So there is no such thing as like you going through a door to go to the other side, which would be the fourth density. No. It is the frequencies that you embody within yourself, within your own consciousness, that dictates what dimension or density you live in at any given moment. That is why, for example, in the raw material, the density that Ra is existing in is of a density that allows him to communicate with beings at a very synchronistic level. Notice how every single time she goes down to meditate, it just so happens that Ra just needs to go and channel with this being. That is not a coincidence because the nature of time is different within his density. But he is not in another place. He is simply vibrating at a different frequency.
So is it possible for me to have certain...
You have the option to be in fourth density right now at this very moment.
But then wouldn't that take me into another reality?
Yes, but the reality would be projected all around you. But and in many cases, those that can't vibrate on that reality would not be able to experience you. But there are many instances where there are beings of a higher density that are existing at the same time as in the lower densities that could communicate with you. For example, there was an individual who lived in New York who had been doing her inner work for quite some time. And her and her friend were the only person in the entire park within New York. They set up a picnic in the middle of a parking lot and there was nobody there. But when she came back the next day, the park was flooded. This is because at that moment in time, she was vibrating in such a way that she existed in a different reality than the other individuals who lived within New York.
It says in the raw material that we can have dual bodies activated. So can I be in the third and the fourth density at the same time?
Yes.
How can that be?
Because the subtle body can be in an energetic level while the physical body in another. Your subtle body has sense organs just like your physical body does. So you would be able to experience third density while at the same time experiencing fourth density.
Is this the same time period?
Yes, because the fourth density is essentially the threshold that one experiences time within their own being. So the subtle body can manipulate the experience of time that one has. Which is why many people, including myself, who have taken psychedelic drugs, have noticed that it seems as if individuals are speaking in slow motion or are fast forwarding like in a recording. The experience of time changed.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll go into duality more next time. Okay. Well, thank you very much, and thank. Oh, wait a minute. Before we go, let's just ask Nocturus a few questions.
Nocturnus.
Nocturnus. Okay. So what's your origination?
I am from the planet Nibiru. I am the incarnation of this soul named Brendon.
Did you not say before that Nibiru is a star system?
Yes. It is a star system and a planet. It is hard to describe.
Okay. And
there are many planets within the star system, but technically I am from the native planet of the Nibiruians. So in conventional speak, that is known as Nibiru.
Okay. And do you speak in love and light and with the highest intentions?
Yes. I speak in a way that it brings balance. That is my primary frequency that I dwell upon. Love and light that many people know of is the frequency of clarity and understanding, and in that I embody.
Okay then. Well, thank you then. And please go ahead and thank the other guy. I forget his name. Yeah, I wrote his name down somewhere. Okay, thank you then. So, are you ready to work your way back now?
Yes.
Okay, so let those images fade around you now. And be aware of the door that is behind you, the one you used to come in as you return to being Brendon again. Okay, so turn and face this door and open it. And go through.